We're ready to go.
Okay. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to play with a Briggs & Stratton, a Craftsman lawnmower. It looks pretty good, but it's been sitting for a little while. A buddy just gave it to me. He said, I just don't want it. I pulled the cord, it didn't start, so I don't want it anymore. And I said, okay, cool. Now I know it's been sitting for a little while. The front tires are just dead locked up. But usually that's easier to fix than you think. So we're going to go to the motor first and work on it a little bit and see if we can't get her started. Once we get her started, we'll get to work on the drive system. So let's get to it. Oh, and thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Now, since this one's been sitting for a little while, we're going to go ahead and pull the lid off first, because I want to drain the gas tank before we do anything. It was pretty dry, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't some sort of wildlife in it or anything like that. And I know the guy that gave it to me, real decent guy. And if it was complete junk, he'd give it to me and say, it's complete junk, have fun with it. But he didn't. He said, you might be able to save it. So let's go to it and try to save it. So job one, pull the gas tank off. And then we're going to flush it out real quick. We're not going to go to any great cleaning on it. We're just going to flush it out to make sure there are no floaters in the tank. You know, no little leaves or anything like that that might hang it up. Okay, that should let the gas tank go. We got one more bolt holding us down. Now we'll get the little bolt underneath, and she should come down for us. Okay, that should do it. Yep, and now we're down to the fuel line. So we're going to pinch the fuel line off, and then pinch it here. Pinch it at the carburetor. As we know, the carburetor is coming off anyway. So let's change our perspective a little bit. There you go, a little easier to see it now. So to pull the gas tank off, we're going to go here. And we're going to go ahead and pull the base cover off. Okay, it should be one more screw. There you go. Now we can get to the clamp easily. But that went a little easier than I thought it was going to. Just came apart on me. Okay, so either way works. The whole idea is to be able to shake it off and give it a good cleanup. So we'll be back in one moment with a clean gas tank. Okay, I'm sure you've all seen people emptying gas tanks into water bottles all the time, and you probably wonder why they do that. Well, there is a logic to it. The idea is if you pour it into an empty water bottle, we can look at what comes out and decide if we like it. And you can look for anything floating around in there and all that. See, if I see a whole bunch of stuff floating around in here, then I'm going to start all over again with cleaning the gas tank. If I don't see anything floating around, then I know that the gas is in okay shape. Now the gas doesn't look great, but it doesn't look terrible either. That's probably good enough to start an engine. But we're going to wait until she's completely empty and see if we've got any floaters in there. Now what we did was, with this gas in it, we shook the tank up really, really hard for a few minutes. And that way anything that's floating around in the tank will come loose. It'll come out now. If you're not 100% confident in the tank being clean, it's just a good way to go. You know, take advantage of the old fuel. Okay, that's about it. And if we look at it, It looks like warm pee, but I don't see anything floating around in it. So I'm going to call this gas okay. I know a little bit about the history of it, and I'm pretty sure this thing's been sitting quite a while. And I can see something, and I can't even identify it sitting in there. So we're going to go ahead and pull it off and put a new carburetor on it. Okay, and remember, this is a really good time to take a picture of the linkage. Picture of the linkage might be your best friend later. So let's pull her off. We're going to have 2 large bolts and 1 small bolt. And you'll find with the large bolts on the sides that your wrench will fit right in there. Better than you might think. Now we're going to switch sizes. And again, I hope you took pictures, because remembering how these springs go later won't be obvious. Now all we've got is the fuel line, which appears to have just a touch of fuel leaking out of the tank. And we'll set him like there. And let's go ahead and grab our new carburetor and just toss it on. And we'll save this one for parts later, but I don't think she's got anything good worth saving in her. And the new carburetor actually came with clear fuel line. Don't know if I've ever seen clear fuel line before, but I do kind of like it. So, now an idea what kind of condition this carburetor is in. There's a little piece of the linkage broke off right here. It just broke off when I was taking the carburetor off, and we were relatively gentle with it. So it was definitely ready to go. Let's go ahead and sleeve her on. Come on, buddy. There we go. Very nice. Now we'll get our 2 bolts back in place. It's going to be interesting to see why the wheels won't turn on this one. That's a much bigger concern for me than the engine is. Okay, nice and snug. Nice and snug. Very good. Now we'll lay our linkage back on. And if you took pictures, this is a no-brainer. If you didn't take pictures, pay attention, because you're going to want to see this step. So you've got this little tab that slots into the little forks on the carburetor. And this should turn freely, and this should move relatively freely. And it all does. Okay, the fuel line that's on this looks pretty good, so I'm going to keep it. But I'm going to try this clear fuel line on the next one that comes down the road. Because that is pretty interesting. Okay, now we're putting our fuel line back on. We'll clamp it back up, and that should be good to go. Put our air base on, and this one will definitely get cleaned up before she goes anywhere. I'm not going to put the top cover on until I hose her down really good. I know people got a lot of opinions about how to clean a lawnmower. Personally, sounds like I'm losing my battery here. Personally, I don't care how a lawnmower gets cleaned. If you got a pressure washer, use it. Cover up the gas tank holes, cover up the oil cap. Make sure you don't spray anything directly into the engine, for God's sake. But other than that, have fun. I even got friends that don't use the pressure cleaner on videos because, and they told me, they just don't like the aggravation they get in the comments. Okay, that's about that. Now, I'll go ahead and hook this back on. Not much to that. And we'll try to get her started. Once we know we can get her started, then we'll start on the drive wheels. Now, I'm usually well and on overly confident when I pull the cord. And this time it's just like every other time. I expect it to start first try, providing she's not leaking. And we'll let her sit for a minute, let the gas settle in. Look around, see if we can find that stray screw. Don't see it anywhere, but it's probably hanging around in the clutter on the side of the mower. So let's give her a pull, see if she starts, and then we'll get to work on the drive wheels. She's almost starting. Okay, she actually sounds okay. And that's good. So let's pull her back in and get to work on the wheels. Okay, let's take the wheels off this guy and see what we've got. Okay, I went ahead and pulled the bolts off of both sides. Sometimes you can just shake it around and she'll come right off, sometimes not so much. Nope, and this is a not so much kind of time. So let me grab a pry bar real quick. Okay, we want to get her off the ground, but not really up in the air. So we'll just put it on the jack all the way down. You see we're just sort of ouijaing around it. And interesting enough, I can feel it loosening up now. They're still way too tight. They're still stuck. And they're not running correctly. But they don't feel like they did when I originally grabbed it. When I originally picked it up, they wouldn't turn at all. And we got a little bit of rust going here. So, let's swat it with a hammer and see what we can do. That seems to be working. Basically what you're doing is you're treating this sort of like an impact tool. So there's no place for the wheel to go. I'm sorry, there's no place for the axle to go. What's happening is it's going that way, very slightly. It's moving the whole mower that way, and the wheel's basically staying in place for that brief instant because we're putting a little weight on her. Okay, she's pretty close. She's still on though. Let's rotate her. Rotate her. Okay, it's just going to take a little patience for this one. And there we go. That's one. So what we've got, what's happened here is, this is the sleeve that goes inside this wheel. And the sleeve has rusted its way onto place. And we might be able to use WD-40, use a penetrant and break it loose. But we might be stuck weeding it off and just putting the front wheels on it. Let's find out. We might be putting a new front axle on it for that matter. Our shiny new tires have come in, so let's get to work and put some new wheels on this guy. Yeah, it's turned a whole lot better than the one that was stuck to the axle. Perfect. Okay, let's run around the other side and pull that one off and do it. Okay, we took the bolts off yesterday, so and that one comes off real easy. Partially because it didn't leave half of the wheel on the axle. It took quite a bit of hammering and banging to get that old little sleeve off. Probably spent about 20 minutes. Won't bore you with the details on that. Let's just say it was tedious. Okay, now the big question, does she still start? She's been sitting up on the little thing yesterday, so let's see what she feels like with new tires on her. She is definitely ready to go. She's feeling nice and solid. So, I'm going to go give her a wash and put her up to go. That one came out pretty nice. The front wheel had split apart, so the little inner race was stuck on the axle and it had just rusted itself shut. The carburetor looked like it had wildlife making nests inside of it, so we didn't even try to clean it. We just went ahead and replaced it. But after those two little changes and a little bit of cleanup, she looks pretty good. So I appreciate everybody watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button. And we'll see you next time.